My wife had an affair and got pregnant. I gave her a second chance for our child. 1 year later, I'm a single dad and she's dating again. I, 32M, never thought I'd be in this situation. My wife Amelia, 30F, and I have been married for 5 years, together for 8. We met during our sophomore year of college at a mutual friend's party. I remember it like it was yesterday. She was wearing a blue dress that matched her eyes perfectly, and her laugh could light up the whole room. We bonded over our shared love of obscure indie bands and terrible sci-fi movies. I felt an instant connection with her that I'd never experienced before. Our relationship progressed quickly after that. We became inseparable, spending every free moment together. Our friends used to tease us about being joined at the hip. We'd stay up all night talking about our dreams, our fears, our hopes for the future. Amelia was the first person I felt I could truly be myself around, without any pretense or fear of judgment. After graduation, we moved in together. It was a tiny studio apartment in a not-so-great part of town, but we were happy. We'd spend our weekends exploring the city, trying new restaurants, and dreaming about our future together. Amelia got a job at a local marketing firm, while I started working as a junior software developer. 2 years later, I proposed. It wasn't anything fancy, just a picnic in the park where we had our first date. But when I got down on one knee and pulled out the ring, which I'd spent months saving for, Amelia burst into tears of joy. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. Our wedding was small but perfect. We exchanged vows in Amelia's parents' backyard, surrounded by our closest friends and family. I'll never forget the way Amelia looked walking down the aisle, or the feeling of sliding the ring onto her finger. We honeymooned in Italy, spending 2 blissful weeks exploring Rome, Florence, and the Amalfi Coast. After the wedding, life settled into a comfortable routine. We both focused on our careers, working hard to build a life together. We bought a small house in the suburbs and started talking about having kids. Everything seemed perfect. Amelia was my best friend, my lover, my partner in every sense of the word. I thought we were unbreakable. But about 6 months ago, things started to change. It was subtle at first, Amelia working later hours, being more distracted when we were together, spending more time on her phone. When I tried to talk to her about it, she brushed me off, saying she was just stressed about a big project at work. I wanted to believe her, but something felt off. Then, 2 months ago, my world came crashing down. I came home early from a business trip, hoping to surprise Amelia. Instead, I was the one who got a surprise. I walked into our bedroom and found Amelia in bed with another man. It was her coworker, Mark, 35M. I stood there frozen, unable to process what I was seeing. Amelia saw me and burst into tears, scrambling to cover herself. Mark quickly got dressed and left without a word, barely looking at me as he rushed past. Amelia begged me to let her explain, but I couldn't bear to hear it. I grabbed some clothes and went to stay with my brother, Arnie, 34M. For the next few days, I was in a daze. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that moment in my head, torturing myself with images of Amelia with Mark. Eventually, Amelia's constant calls and texts wore me down, and I agreed to meet her for coffee. She told me the affair had been going on for 3 months. She said she never meant for it to happen, that she still loved me, but she had developed feelings for Mark too. She wanted to work things out with me, but she wasn't sure she could give up Mark either. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. For the next few weeks, I stayed with Arnie, trying to make sense of what had happened. Arnie was furious on my behalf, urging me to leave Amelia and never look back. But it wasn't that simple. Despite everything, I still loved her. We had built a life together, and the thought of walking away from it all was devastating. Amelia continued to reach out, alternating between apologizing profusely and begging me to come home. She suggested counseling, said she'd do anything to regain my trust. I was torn. Part of me wanted to believe we could work through this, that our love was strong enough to overcome even this betrayal. But another part of me was so angry and hurt, I could barely stand to look at her. To complicate matters further, I found out last week that Amelia is pregnant. She swears it's mine, that she and Mark always used protection. But how can I be sure? The timing lines up that it could be either of ours. Amelia wants me to come home so we can figure things out together. She says she'll do whatever it takes to save our marriage. I'm at a loss. I never in a million years thought I'd be in this situation. I always believed in working through problems in a marriage, but this feels like too much. The thought of raising another man's child makes me sick to my stomach. But what if it is mine? Don't I owe it to my child to try and make things work? My family and friends are divided on what I should do. Arnie thinks I'm crazy for even considering taking Amelia back. He says once a cheater, always a cheater. My parents, on the other hand, are more forgiving. They believe in the sanctity of marriage and think I should at least try to work things out, especially with a baby on the way. My best friend from college, Alex, 31M, suggests I take some time for myself before making any decisions. I keep replaying our relationship in my mind, wondering if there were signs I missed. Was I not attentive enough? Did I take her for granted? Amelia says no, that it was all her mistake, but I can't help questioning everything. Were all those late nights really about work, or was she with Mark? When she was texting and smiling at her phone, was it him on the other end? The hardest part is the loneliness. I miss my wife, my best friend. I miss our nightly routine of cooking dinner together and watching our favorite shows. I miss the way she'd absently play with my hair while we were reading in bed. I miss the sound of her laugh and the smell of her perfume. But the woman I miss doesn't exist anymore. The Amelia I knew would never have done this to me. I don't know how to reconcile the woman I loved with the woman who betrayed me so deeply. I'm trying to focus on myself right now. I've thrown myself into work, taking on extra projects to keep my mind occupied. I've started going to the gym regularly, pushing my body to exhaustion in hopes of quieting my mind. It helps distract me during the day, but at night, the pain and confusion come flooding back. I can't sleep without dreaming about them together. I know I need to make a decision soon. Amelia is pushing for an answer about the pregnancy in our marriage. But I'm paralyzed by indecision. How do you choose between walking away from the life you thought you had and trying to rebuild something that feels irreparably broken? Every time I think I've made up my mind, I second guess myself. If I leave, will I regret it for the rest of my life? If I stay, will I ever be able to trust her again? Will I look at our child and always wonder if they're really mine? I feel like I'm standing at a crossroads, and no matter which path I choose, I'm leaving a piece of myself behind. The future I thought I had, growing old with Amelia, raising a family together, has been shattered. Now I have to figure out how to pick up the pieces and move forward, one way or another. Any advice would be appreciated. I feel so lost and alone. Update 1. It's been 2 months since my last post, and a lot has happened. First, I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. Your words helped me gain perspective and gave me strength during some of my darkest moments. After much soul-searching and countless sleepless nights, I decided I couldn't continue the marriage. The trust was broken, and I realized I deserved better than constantly worrying and doubting. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt it was the right one for my mental health and self-respect. I met with Amelia at a neutral location, a quiet cafe we used to frequent in happier times. The irony wasn't lost on me. I told her I wanted a divorce. She broke down crying, begging me to reconsider, but I stood firm. I explained that while I still cared for her, I couldn't see a way forward that didn't involve constant suspicion and resentment. She was devastated but said she understood. We agreed to do a paternity test as soon as possible. The wait for the results was agonizing. I threw myself into work, often staying at the office until late at night just to avoid going back to the empty apartment I was renting. Arnie was worried about me, constantly checking in and trying to get me to socialize, but I wasn't ready. The results came back last week. The baby is mine. It was a whirlwind of emotions. Relief that it wasn't Mark's, but also fear and uncertainty about the future. I had mentally prepared myself for both possibilities, but the reality of impending fatherhood hit me hard. Amelia and I had a long talk after getting the results. She again expressed her remorse and desire to work things out. She told me she had started individual counseling to understand why she cheated and how to be a better partner. She said she'd realized how much she took our relationship for granted and how close she came to losing everything that truly mattered to her. She begged me to reconsider the divorce, at least until after the baby was born. She painted a picture of us raising our child together, rebuilding our relationship stronger than before. Part of me wanted to believe her, to believe that we could overcome this and be a family. I was torn. On one hand, I still love Amelia. The idea of my child growing up in a broken home breaks my heart. I thought about my own childhood. My parents divorced when I was young, and while they did their best, it was still difficult. I always promised myself I'd do everything in my power to give my kids a stable, two-parent home. On the other hand, the thought of trying to rebuild our relationship while dealing with a newborn seemed overwhelming. Could I ever truly trust her again? Would I always be wondering where she was, who she was talking to? And what about Mark? He still worked at her company. Even if Amelia swore she'd never speak to him again, could I believe her? I spent days agonizing over the decision. I talked it over with Arnie, who was surprisingly supportive of whatever I chose. I also confided in my old college friend, Alex, who had been through a similar situation. He advised me to follow my heart but also to protect myself. After much deliberation, I decided to give it one last try. Not for Amelia, not even for myself, but for our unborn child. I figured I owed it to my son or daughter to at least try to make things work with their mother. We're going to start couples counseling next week. I've moved back home, but we're sleeping in separate rooms. We're taking things day by day, trying to rebuild from the ground up. It's not easy. There are moments when I look at Amelia and all I can see is her betrayal. The image of her with Mark is seared into my brain, and I'm not sure it will ever fully go away. But there are also moments when I catch a glimpse of the woman I fell in love with, her kindness, her sense of humor, the way her eyes light up when she talks about something she's passionate about. I'm trying to focus on those moments. We've set some ground rules. Amelia has agreed to complete transparency. I have access to all her devices and accounts. She's changed jobs to avoid any contact with Mark. We're also focusing on rebuilding our friendship before working on the romantic aspect of our relationship. The pregnancy is progressing well. We found out we're having a boy. Seeing the ultrasound and feeling the baby kick has brought us closer in some ways. We're both excited about becoming parents, even if our relationship is uncertain. I know many of you advised against giving her another chance, and I understand why. But I felt I needed to try, for my son if nothing else. If it doesn't work out, at least I'll know I did everything I could. I'm still struggling with trust issues and bouts of anger. Sometimes I find myself checking Amelia's phone or questioning her whereabouts, even though she's been completely open. She's been patient with my suspicion, which I appreciate, but I know it's not healthy for either of us in the long run. We've also been spending more quality time together, trying to reconnect. We've started taking walks in the evening and cooking dinner together like we used to. It's nice, but there's always an undercurrent of tension and hurt. We're both walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do the wrong thing. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I'm trying to take it one day at a time. The counseling is helping, but we have a long way to go. I'm hopeful, but also realistic. I know there's a chance this won't work out, and I'm prepared for that possibility. Thank you again for all your support. I'll update again when there's more to share. Update 2, it's been 6 months since my last update, and I wish I had better news to share. Despite our best efforts, Amelia and I have decided to end our marriage. The last few months have been a roller coaster of emotions. Our son, Ethan, was born 3 months ago. He's healthy and beautiful, and being his father is the greatest joy I've ever known. Holding him for the first time was an indescribable feeling. In that moment, all the pain and uncertainty of the past year faded away, and I was filled with an overwhelming love for this tiny human we had created. For a while, it seemed like Ethan might be the glue to hold our marriage together. Amelia and I were united in our love for him, working together to navigate the challenges of new parenthood. We were sleep-deprived and overwhelmed, but there were moments of genuine happiness and connection. But as the initial excitement of new parenthood wore off, our old issues resurfaced. The counseling helped us communicate better, but it couldn't erase the hurt and mistrust. I found myself constantly on edge, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Every time Amelia's phone buzzed, I felt a surge of anxiety. If she was late coming home from work, my mind immediately went to the worst-case scenario. I tried to push these thoughts aside, to focus on our family and the good moments we shared. But the doubt was always there, gnawing at me. I could see it was wearing on Amelia too. She was trying her best to prove herself, to be the perfect wife and mother, but the strain was evident. The breaking point came last month. I overheard Amelia on the phone with a friend, complaining about how controlling and paranoid I'd become. She said she felt like she was walking on eggshells around me and that she missed the freedom she had with Mark. She quickly backtracked, saying she didn't mean it that way, but the damage was done. Hearing that was like a knife to the heart. I realized then that no matter how hard we tried, things would never be the same between us. The Amelia I loved was gone, and I didn't like the person I was becoming either. The constant suspicion and resentment were poisoning not just our relationship, but my entire outlook on life. We had a long, painful conversation that night after putting Ethan to bed. We both admitted that we were staying together more for his sake than our own. But we realized that wasn't fair to any of us. Ethan deserves happy, healthy parents, even if they're not together. We didn't want him growing up in a home filled with tension and unspoken resentment. So, we're getting divorced. It's not the outcome I hoped for, but I believe it's the right decision for all of us. We're trying to keep things amicable for Ethan's sake. We've agreed on joint custody and are working out the details with our lawyers. It's not easy, but we're both committed to co-parenting as best we can. I'm moving out next week. I found a small apartment close by so I can be near Ethan. It's strange to think about starting over at 33, but I'm trying to stay positive. I'm focusing on being the best father I can be and rediscovering who I'm outside of my marriage. Amelia and I are trying to maintain a friendly relationship for Ethan's sake. It's awkward and sometimes painful, but we're managing. We've agreed to keep our personal lives separate and only discuss matters related to Ethan. It's a delicate balance, but we're both committed to making it work for our son. I won't lie, there are days when the loneliness and sense of failure overwhelm me. I find myself thinking about the life we planned together, the future we'll never have. But then I look at Ethan, and I know I made the right decision. He deserves parents who are happy and whole, not trapped in a marriage poisoned by mistrust and resentment. I'm starting to think about the future again. Not dating yet, I'm not ready for that. But I'm reconnecting with old friends, considering a career change, maybe even taking some classes. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I have possibilities ahead of me. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable. This isn't the happy ending I hoped for, but I'm at peace with my decision. Here's to new beginnings. Update 3, it's been a year since my last update, and I wanted to share some final thoughts on this chapter of my life. The divorce was finalized 6 months ago. It was a difficult process, but Amelia and I managed to keep things civil. We stuck to our agreement about co-parenting Ethan, and so far, it's working well. He's a happy, healthy toddler who brings so much joy to both our lives. I've settled into my new life as a single dad. It was challenging at first, juggling work and childcare, but I've found my rhythm. I cherish the time I have with Ethan and make the most of every moment. Watching him grow and learn new things every day is incredible. His first words, his first steps, I'm grateful I haven't missed any of these milestones. As for Amelia, we maintain a cordial relationship for Ethan's sake. It's not always easy, especially when I learned she had started dating again. Mark, thankfully, is out of the picture for good. But seeing her move on was still painful, even though I knew it was inevitable. We've had our share of disagreements about parenting decisions, but we're learning to communicate better and put Ethan's needs first. On my end, I've focused on personal growth. I took some coding classes and landed a new job in tech. The change has been refreshing and has given me a renewed sense of purpose. The new job also offers more flexibility, which has been great for balancing work and time with Ethan. I've also started volunteering at a local animal shelter on weekends when Ethan is with Amelia. It's been incredibly rewarding and has helped me feel connected to something bigger than myself. Plus, playing with the dogs is a great stress reliever. My support system has been invaluable throughout this process. Arnie has been my rock, always there to listen or to take my mind off things when needed. My parents have been wonderful, doting on Ethan and helping out whenever they can. I've also reconnected with old friends and made new ones through a single parent support group. I'm not ready for a serious relationship yet, but I've gone on a few casual dates. It's been nice to feel that spark of connection again, even if I'm taking things very slowly. I'm still working through my trust issues in therapy, but I feel like I'm making progress. Looking back, I can see how much I've grown from this experience. The pain and betrayal I felt have faded, replaced by a sense of resilience and self-discovery. I've learned a lot about myself, my boundaries, and what I want in a partner. I'm stronger now, more confident in who I am and what I deserve. There are still difficult days, of course. Days when I miss the life I thought I would have, or when I worry about the impact of our divorce on Ethan. But overall, I'm in a much better place than I was a year ago. I'm focused on building a happy, stable life for myself and my son. To those who might be going through something similar, I want to say, it does get better. The road isn't easy, and there will be days when you feel like you can't go on. But you're stronger than you know. Focus on yourself, surround yourself with supportive people, and take it one day at a time. I'm grateful for the good years Amelia and I had together, and for our son. But I'm also excited about what the future holds. For the first time in a long time, I feel truly hopeful. I don't know what's next, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Thank you all for being part of this journey with me. Your support and advice have meant more than you know. This will be my final update. It's time to close this chapter and focus on writing the next one.